So thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. I have seriously had a lot of time uh, at the last 2 days at the goat job that Miss Jan was just speaking about. And um, you should have you should have Laura send you some pictures of what it looks like now. It's unrecognizable from what it was even 8 hours after the goats got there. You can see straight through. There's just about nothing in there anymore. So they'll be finishing up that area tomorrow and then they'll be ready to go. But I just wanted to chat a bit about who we are and what we do. So a little bit different kind of a thing to use goats, but yes, we are, if you ask my husband, not a farm. We have lots and lots and lots of goats. 70 actually. That's little micro Jan actually when he was a baby. So he was really little. We have chickens, we have ducks. I have a dog that is ruled by the cat. If anyone really likes gardening, talk to me about tomatoes sometime because I think I'm up to 154 different varieties of heirloom tomatoes that I grow in my garden. So I'll totally nerd out about heirloom tomatoes anytime. Love the outdoors. So my daughter and I go salmon fishing. My dog is a field line Gordon setter. We go hunting. He's done a lot of hunting tests, perfect scores pretty much in everything. So he's a great dog. Pretty much anything outside. That's Emma helped me clean out our creek behind our house. And I do have a doctorate in veterinary medicine, so go green. I was there for all 9 years of college, so state. And then one contact after another contact after another contact, initially from me getting my farm meat verified starting this past spring, led me to Jan. So it's been kind of a long process, but definitely a great contact out there. So invasive vegetation, I know y'all are familiar with invasive, so non-native, they have ecological and economic harm, sometimes harm to human health, but we have lots of things that are non-native that are not necessarily invasive, like European honeybees. We really like those, but they would not be considered invasive because of their lack of impact in a negative manner. Um, Things that we can do when we have invasive species. So really look at the high value treatment sites. So with the Oriental bittersweet that we are prioritizing out at the church job right now, the big thing for them is that they are in the watershed. So definitely an area that we want to try to get underneath control. And then control methods for the site and what you have available to use, really important. So if you're in a marsh area, you obviously want to make sure that you're not using glyphosate, because that is not labeled from the EPA for wetland areas. So make sure that you're using the appropriate methodologies to manage those invasive species. Sometimes special permits are required. So the big thing with preventing it from getting worse is to focus on the mature seed producing plants. So bittersweet would be the vines. So really want to get rid of the reseeding potential. So the smaller ones are not necessarily a big concern for spreading of that species. We really want to focus on the fruits, the mature fruits from the big mature seed producing vines. Take care of the smaller satellite populations, and then we get to the lower value, large infestations as the resources are available. And then big thing, post-treatment monitoring. So we don't just treat and then forget about it. So we have to keep monitoring that site to make sure that we are not getting any more pop-ups of anything else from the seed bank that was lying dormant in the soil that now has light exposure, water, plenty of nutrients available. Or in the case of what usually happens is other things come in. So birds drop seeds, pretty much constantly. So seeds in a bird's GI tract can last up to 28 days and still come out viable. So that bird that was in another state a month ago could drop seeds from that area. So there's always going to be things to monitor. And then, as with anything, adapt, see what's going on, adapt, change things as needed. Just have to make sure that we're changing the methodology that we're using appropriately. So just because we use one method one year doesn't mean it's still appropriate the next. What we do, so obviously Oriental bittersweet is a big one. Poison ivy, not invasive, that's actually native, but noxious. We do a lot of poison ivy jobs because a lot of people are very, very allergic to it. It's probably right underneath bittersweet in terms of our client requests for goals. Autumn olive, garlic mustard, Japanese barberries, a little bit of a newer one. The goats aren't super fond of that, but you can see up in the top corner here, they do eat it. It has the most needle-like thorns though. Somehow those are worse for them than like the autumn olive or the multiflora rose, but they do still eat it. Honeysuckle, like this right here that Cepho's eating. They do eat thistle, believe it or not. The second main thing that they're eating right now at the neighborhood church project is buckthorn. There is buckthorn, 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 and more buckthorn. So lots and lots of buckthorn there. And then multiflora rose, we do a lot of briar cleanup. People just don't like the wild black raspberries when they start encroaching on their lawns. And then wild parsnip as well. And then the big thing when you take care of vines, so all of these are Oriental bittersweet fruits, the seeds are in there. So we really want to get as much of these berries to be consumed by the goats as we possibly can. So when we go to treat, we cut the vines, make sure that the roots, if we pull very, very, very small, keyword, immature ones, that if we pull the roots out, they're not touching soil because they will resprout. And then anything that has seeds on it, recommendations for getting rid of that are incineration, which is not really practical in a lot of circumstances, bagged and disposed of in a landfill. And there is an exemption in Michigan law for invasive species. So normally yard waste is not allowed to go into the landfills, but there actually is an exception for invasive species. So you are able to do that. The big thing that I really like to recommend is feed it to goats. So the key with using goats to reduce reseeding and the spread of invasive species is that only 1 to 4% of the seeds that goats ingest will actually come out in a viable form. So unlike birds who can spread those viable seeds for up to a month, no matter where they travel, goats eat seeds, and because of their four-chambered stomach, so rumen, reticulum, omasum, abomasum, and the fact that they regurgitate their cud, kind of like cows do, re-chew it and re-swallow it, and they grind with those back molars, they actually destroy. So 96 to 99% of those seeds will not be viable after the goats eat them. So with invasive species, I know you're familiar with mechanical, hand pulling, cutting, mowing. The goats will girdle, people can girdle them as well with tools. Cut the roots, use chemical herbicides. We can reduce the amount that come up, and we can reduce their health and ability to spread with mature seeds by regenerating that area with natives. We can reduce soil disturbance, so it is unlikely that there will be bare soil for other seeds to come in that place and sprout. And then public education, public education, public education, because I don't know anyone who hasn't gone to a garden store and doesn't see invasive plants for sale. So a lot of them are marketed, especially in this area, as deer resistant. And a lot of those are deer resistant because they're invasive. They're not native around here. So therefore, the deer around here don't eat them. So a lot, not all, but a lot of those are very invasive. So Japanese barberry is the one that comes to mind, hands down. It's everyone likes it. The deer don't like it. So everyone plants it in their landscaping, and then birds pick up those berries and drop those seeds everywhere. So they're having a hard time with them in a lot of the parks nearby. Controlled burning, not really used a lot around our area, but definitely is a method. And then goats. So goats would actually be over in the mechanical area. So they physically defoliate vegetation. And the big thing again is they eat those berries, which contain the seeds. So how we do it, so we have clients fill out information form. We do a free 30-minute site visit. We send a quote, get everything signed. Really, really recommend calling Miss Dig. Not all clients do, but I have grounding rods I have to put in at locations. So I need to ideally make sure that I'm not going to be putting that into anything. Or another big one out here is like septic tanks. Discuss with neighbors is really important. Don't want to just go and then start setting up an electric fence and not have neighbors be aware of the fact that there will be an electric fence and goats nearby. So definitely discuss with neighbors ahead of time. And then we go to set up. So this is the high school student that I was very fortunate to have working with me this summer. She was great. So our fence was actually supposed to go right here behind her. So as you can see, it's just a wall. So path clearing takes a long time. The church job, I spent all day yesterday just making a path to put in fence and putting fence up. So that's all I did yesterday. And then, so when people have a fence, they often ask if the goats can go in there. The answer is no, because they will absolutely go through that. The joke is if you have goats and water can go through a fence, the goats can go right through. So, yeah, we definitely have to clear a path for our electric fence to go alongside those fences, which we do. Not a problem, but definitely adds to the labor time for sure. We take out any noxious or toxic plants like sticky burrs. I try to take out as many as I can see beforehand so I don't have to comb as many out of the goats. We go ahead and get the fence along those paths. We set up security cameras so I can peek in at them anytime. And then bring the goats in. So then the goats come. This is Theo. Jan saw him this morning. So eating some poison ivy right there. And they hang out. That's always a big question. Were you going to come back and get them tonight? No, they sleep there. As you can see with them taking a nap, they just find a good spot that has a good vantage point. They like to be able to see around them. For safety, they're very feral, innately feral breed. So they just pick a spot and they eat, they lay down, they take a nap. They eat, they lay down, take a nap. And then when we pick them up, we say about 2 weeks after that, the vegetation will continue to die off. So any vines that are cut, any vines that the goats damage farther down, the vegetation higher up in those trees will continue to die for about the next 2 weeks. So we tell people just give it time for those vines to die if they're not down on the ground for the goats to eat, and they will go away. We don't need to pull all the vines. So with all the trouble that they are, why on earth would someone have so many goats? So we like to take pictures when we go out on jobs to see what kind of wildlife we can find. So we find everything. And unlike doing controlled burning, unlike spraying everything, unlike just running a brush hog through everything, we don't chop little critters up, unfortunately, like brush hogs and things like that do. We don't burn them. We're not spraying everything. So insects still can live just fine. The box turtles and everything are still there. also giant snapping turtles. But yeah, big thing is the ecological management. And then they eat an insane amount, so it reduces the above ground biomass quickly. So two-leggeds can then get in and access the main vines, stumps, what have you, whatever you're dealing with, oriental bittersweet or autumn olive, so that we can actually treat those, cut them, chemical herbicides if you like to, but we don't have to do foliar spray. So we don't have to spray everything with herbicide. We can just local application, use those herbicides right on those cut areas. Obviously less fuel, dramatically reduced harm to wildlife, which the whole nutrient cycling process is pretty much null and void if we bring a brush hog through or anything like that. So goats, definitely the way to go from an environmental standpoint. Again, the seeds, not many seeds make it through. Community engagement is huge. So people get very, very interested, very curious, very excited when they see goats there, a lot more than just seeing someone brush hog or spray something. Community involvement is huge with also spreading the word about why we're doing it with invasive species, particularly. A lot of people don't know. They have absolutely no idea what they plant in their landscaping. They don't know what's growing on the tree, but behind their bird feeders. They have absolutely no idea. So using goats is a really great way to increase the engagement in the community. Also, fertilizer, it's like black gold. So they do really, really good job with making lots of it, putting it down in the soil, and enables things to grow a lot better. And then they can go almost anywhere. There's yet to be a place that we've not been able to do because of the terrain or the environment or the vegetation that's there. So I have almost, but there hasn't been a spot that we haven't been able to go yet. So even sensitive ecosystems. So wetlands, creeks, streams, watershed areas that a lot of clients really do not want to spray, we can very easily put the goats there. So they happily go over it. And then the big thing is getting goats that are comfortable everywhere. So we want them to just go in and go like gangbusters. So we actually do a lot of meadow clean outs so people don't use brush hogs, insects, things like that. They really want to keep those around. So we do a lot of meadow clean out. So this is when we put them in bird feeder for reference there. And then this is during, so bird feeder there. And then the areas that this client wanted gone because she had lots of poison ivy, we let them eat it down to the ground. But generally we thin it, we trim it, but we don't want them to eat it all because we actually don't want to stress those plants out to the point where they're having to struggle to regrow. But yeah, that's the bird house there again. And then places that literally no one has been in decades, like this. We do a lot of those. So you can see where the goats just came from and went to. So this looked like this, 20 minutes before this picture was taken. And then benefits of using the TBI goats versus anyone else's. So how I got in contact with Jan was through Ryan at Kent Conservation District. So he came out and looked at some properties that my goats had been on between 1 and 5 years just to see the process, because they had previously used several different goat herders, I suppose, and had actually had negative results with them. So they didn't eat the invasive vegetation. They mainly ate like the native lush grasses and other forages and left what they were really trying to get rid of. So they took a little bit of convincing, but the meat technician that I had told them, if anyone can convince us to use goats, it's Michelle. So they came out and looked, and so we're actually the only one that Kent Conservation District recommends, and they actually recommend against using the other goat businesses. So I'm not sure how familiar all you all with Ryan, but he's a pretty good guy. So veterinarian owned, environmental nerd with pharmaceuticals. So like the Spanish goats, they are a cashmere breed, they shed. So even springtime when they're shedding, if I have to do any like lice treatments or anything, I do it well before they start shedding. So I'm like that OCD about it. Purpose bred Spanish goats, they're super healthy. So if we're doing this for community engagement, we really ought to have really healthy looking goats, good slick hair coats, not super thin. They also, because of their nature and because I'm a vet, they have few or no parasites. So they're not dropping a bunch of roundworm or whipworm larvae into the soil for wildlife to then pick up. I do also get the weed seeds, the sticky burrs and things like that off of them between sites, so they're not spreading that. And then another big thing is if anyone injured or ill, they're taken care of right away. Where not to use them, neighbors are the big thing. If you have neighbors that you're like, yeah, I don't know if they're gonna keep away from the fence, they're gonna let their dogs go, they're gonna throw footballs, not the place. So injuries, buried treasures are the big thing. Want to make sure that there's not a bunch of old rusty farm equipment or anything like that there that they can injure themselves on, or places that are filled with toxic plants. So if there's just a few, we pick them out. But if it's like a field of nightshade or something like that, it's just not going to work with goats. And then when the goats leave, what do we do? So we cut and treat if we'd like to use herbicides, reseed and replant native. So cover that ground just like Mother Nature likes us to do. She does not like barren soil, so cover it with something. So if we are going to plan to put the goats back through again, a lot of clients will plant annual rye. So annual, it will reseed to some degree, but it doesn't come back every year, obviously, like the perennials. And then plant native species in there. So go to the Kent Conservation District's native plant sales, go to Calvin's native plant sales. Michigan Wildflower Farm is another one Ryan recently put me onto. They have a great selection as well. Have the goats back. So if we have a site that the clients do not want to use any herbicides at all, we say 3 to 5 years to basically deplete the energy reserves in the roots would be our intention with that. So this right here is a huge autumn olive, I would say shrub, but it was pretty much a tree. So first year, we cut that. You can also see the goats girdled it. So the goats chew immature bark like crazy. They love it. So even if we didn't cut it, mainly so they can eat the berries again, so less reseeding potential, all that would have died because they had girdled it, but we wanted them to eat the seeds. This is a client that does not like herbicides, absolutely refuses to use them. This autumn olive is now, this is after the 3rd year of the goats going there. So it started just like this, and then we cut it. Next year, there'll be little sprouts. We cut it and let the goats eat it again. And eventually there's only a finite amount of energy in those roots, so it just stops growing. And then the big thing, if we are doing any mechanical stuff, is get rid of it before it produces more seeds. So I just have an example to go through. This was a property that I started 5 years ago. The goats were there for 3 consecutive years. We skipped a year, and then we went back again this year. So this is 4 years of using goats over a 5-year time span. So this is where we started. So this is looking at this area in particular. So this is bittersweet. This is Oriental bittersweet. Tons and tons of Oriental bittersweet. Again, before. So you can't see behind it. You can't see through that at all. You can't see through the trees. There's just so much of it. And there's just this mat on the ground. So it's basically like a mattress, a sponge of bittersweet vines that don't have any trees to gang up on. So they actually just keep growing on top of each other. Just another view. So this is before. And this is the view looking left before. And then we put the goats in. And as you can see, they are literally like eating their way into the bittersweet. So definitely not anything that they're just picking off the ground. This is that same evening. So this is that main tree that was covered before to the right, and then looking down that fence line. So they very, very quickly do an absolutely phenomenal job of clearing out that above ground biomass. And then, so this is that same area that the client said, I have no idea what's underneath there. It was actually a tree that was just swallowed by bittersweet. So yeah, cut and pull vines with seeds, let the goats eat that. And then this is the next day. So this is one day later. This is that tree that was swallowed by the bittersweet. And you can see we cut these vines, so these are starting to shrivel up and die. They'll stay up there. They die, they blow away, go down to the soil and go through that nutrient cycling, but much, much, much less biomass down here. And you can actually start to see a little bit through the trees. This is where we started year 2. So after we went through all of this area, year 1, this is where we started year 2. So there's still some that comes back. It absolutely does. This client has 10 acres. She absolutely refused to use any herbicides, even on cut stump focal applications. She absolutely was not going to do any foliar spraying, but not even cut stump. So this is where we started year 2. This is where we ended year 2. So we can actually see some mulch piles that honestly we had no idea were there. This is that initial tree that was swallowed in those vines. This is where we started this year. So we did 3 consecutive years, skipped last year, and then came back this year. Just health issues on her side was the reason that we didn't do it last year. It just did not work out in the schedule. So we started this year. This is the fourth year. You can see through all these trees in the back. You can see through these trees up here on the hill, and there's hardly anything growing up these trees. You can still see the really old big vines right there. So different angle, same spot where we started this year, but even starting this year is dramatically increased light that's actually reaching that area. Just a closer image of close up. And this is where we ended this year. So this is after 4 years of just goats and cutting, nothing else. No herbicides or anything. And I mean, you can pretty much see the ground. There's always going to be a little bit of green that remains. So the goats do not like to eat things that are stepped on, pooped on, things like that. There's always going to be a little bit of green, but vastly, vastly different. So the other angle, looking that way again, you can see through all those trees, hardly anything down below. This is where I took pictures from before down here. So this is at the top of the hill looking downward. So you can see how open that is. This area right here, for the first time this year, because some of these cherry trees finally had enough light and nutrients to fruit out, dropped a whole bunch of berries, and there are a whole bunch of black cherry saplings right there. Very, very toxic to goats. And so we actually fenced that out of the area. So had they been able to go in there, there would not be that green right there. But everything else, I mean, there's basically no bittersweet left behind now. This is the top of that hill. This is a lot of mostly autumn olive and more bittersweet. This is the neighbor's property. This is the property line. And this is where the goats have now been for 4 years. So this is basically what this area started as. So this is before, and this is where that client is at right now. Just goats, nothing else. Goats and cutting and pulling. She does not want to use anything else. And then shameless plugs. I'm always looking for help. Nobody likes going out when it's 85 and sweating, being full of seeds and everything else, poison ivy. But it's a free full body workout. It's like a free gym membership. So I also pay really well, especially if you ask Amelia. So that's the high school student that was with me this summer. And she still comes back for fun. So pretty good boss too. And then wood chips. We're always looking for wood chips. We always look to reduce, reuse, recycle, and I like compost, kind of obsessed with it. So restaurant kitchen scraps, compostable egg trays, they all go in the chicken run. And then Christmas trees every winter. We have a dumpster company that I'm friends with, and he picks up Christmas trees for free. So the goats love them. It breaks up the dry hay monotony in the wintertime. So always looking for more non-sprayed Christmas trees. And that is all that I have.
Well, with our small group, I think I will just open it up for questions. That was fantastic, Michelle. You did a great job.
Thank you.
And because we have plenty of time for questions, we usually stop at 8, so you know. And I just didn't know from the standpoint of, how large the group was going to be. Um,
Sure.
I'm one thing well I'm gonna let other people talk. I did have a question, but I know from the invasive standpoint, I think there was one point Brian might have said this on the presentation he made with the same day you presented. And I couldn't remember whether you said it or Ryan, so I'd give
Sure.
to but so everyone understands. I'm not sure if this whole group understands with if you all are, up to par with knowledge of the Oriental or Asian bittersweet in the sense of why it's so dangerous to trees. It is literally squeezes them to death
Mm-hmm.
in comparison to any other vine. So I didn't know if you all knew that, but I just wanted to make that statement. Um, why
Yeah.
it's so obnoxious in the sense of what's happening.
They constrict them. Yeah, they basically grow up the tree. They end up constricting them, basically like a boa constrictor. And they grow so proliferatively that the mass of those vines and all the vegetation and berries just brings the trees down. It's really, really dangerous. Huge trees with lots of biomass and vegetation up there. Actually, that's what's going on at the church
That
too.
is exactly what's going on in the church. And
Yep.
well, I mean, I walked this land 2 years ago with one of the other members, and it was non-existent. In the meantime, what happens as being climate specialists? We know the increase in temperature in 2 very hot summers, and then with the vines bringing down one or two major trees opened
Yep.
up to the whole area of sunlight. And Michelle, you said this to me when we first walked back there, and I just was aghast
Yes.
believe what I was looking at. And there's layers and layers of vines and them coming up all these major trees and trees down and everything. It was disaster. I mean,
Hmm.
in the sense of I was
Yeah.
concerned. And so really knowing the extent of, particularly of what's happening with the warming of our climate in Michigan and this invasive on how it's taking over. And I think the other one that you brought up was that autumn olive is just going like wildfire. You guys that are going up north all the time, you see it everywhere. That,
Hmm.
and then you mentioned buckhorn. So some of this stuff, the option of what we have. Then I'm going to stop talking and let everybody else ask questions.
Uh, Clearly, your goats seem to be more effective than other goats and many other methods of management. What is the difference between your methods with your goats and other goat herds or goat organizations?
Management. So that's one of the key things. So a lot of people really do not like to bust trails through a solid wall of jungle, basically. And so when they are presented with 2 acres, they fence the whole thing in. They just go right around the whole thing. And then they put the goats in. And no one's generally as crazy as I am and has nearly as many goats as I do. So it also takes longer for those goats to get through it. So when goats are in an area, they pick and choose what they would like to eat if they are in there too long. So in order to have goats that are really effective, you want to maximize like their FOMO, the fear of missing out. So when you put them in, they eat like gangbusters for about 24 to 36 hours. And then they start picking. So you want them to be in an area while they are just eating everything. You want them to eat everything in sight that is green or an immature brown stem. If they are in there for a week, that person rubbed on it, she coughed on it, she pooped on it. Like they're not going to eat it. So the management is a big, big, big process. So like yesterday, I spent literally all day making a trail like for the section of fencing that we put in today. Most people would just fence the whole area in and be like, come back in a week, but they're just not effective like that. Also, that's all my goats eat spring through fall. So they are accustomed to everything, part of it being very important, not only what we eat or what they eat and manage is where. And so literally they are comfortable going anywhere. They just go like gangbusters. I open up the trailer, they see green and they just go. So yeah, they are very accustomed to going anywhere and that's all they eat. So it's not just a weekend thing. They don't get alfalfa, hay, and grain at my place and then have to go eat autumn olive on the weekends. Like that's all they eat spring through fall. So they're very accustomed to it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
They make a lot of noise too when
It's
they're
just,
really
it's not a question, it's a comment, but they sound like really happy goats.
They are. A lot of people comment on that. Yes. I've had a lot of clients tell me that if they could come back in an alternate life, they would like to be a goat, in particular one of my goats. So, yes.
Yep. I do have one question. It's just
Mhm.
more out of curiosity. It sounds you guys, it's great work. I think it's your goats because if you're saying you're the one that puts up electric fences, I've seen this before around other
Okay.
churches. Yeah. And but do you have baby goats go?
Oh, yeah.
The babies get to go? Okay.
Yep. So, babies, I very selective with when I breed. So when I have babies born, bottle feed them before the big start of brush season. And they go out so that they learn. So eating brush, how they walk saplings down, how they pull branches down, what they eat, what they don't eat. A lot of that is a learned behavior. So if you get some goats that have just eaten out of a feed trough and you put them out in like the area that they went in this morning that Jan saw, they would literally just scream that they're starving, even though they're surrounded by food. So it's a learned habit. So they have to get used to it right away. So yep, the babies go right with the bigs. I call them the bigs. So babies go with the bigs all brush season.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Much does this, how much does it cost?
It varies a lot. So estimation with how much time to clear fence paths, how much linear fence, mileage. I mean, like I'll be making 4 trips back and forth to this church job today. I made 2 trips with goats, a 3rd trip after I went back home, ate some lunch, changed, and went back out to cut things and pull things down for a couple hours. And then I'll go back out there tonight with the camper to stay. So lots of things. The typical backyard perimeter job, like suburbia, is what I say, which I do a lot of, like Cascade, Ada area, because we're just swallowed in bittersweet, is usually between like 750 and 1500. So depending on how much path clearing, and the size of the area. Bigger parcels, we are anywhere, so it's gonna sound a crazy range, but it really does vary. So we're anywhere between like 500 and like 5,000 an acre, like completely depending on a lot of factors. Place like meadows, not that much, so it's only knee high and we're only putting it down to calf high. We're not having them get it down to the ground, and we're not dealing with, bittersweet vines or something like that. They have to eat all through that. They're only eating through that much. So that's why there's such a range on a per acreage area.
Do all the goats get to go out, or do you select if depending on the area?
So I have my one main group. So there's 60 in that main group. So that's what's out at the church project right now. I have 11, no, 10. Actually just I had 71, but actually just euthanized one 2 days ago. So 70 now. They are still at home, and I'm gonna see how it goes. And hopefully I'll be able to bring them in. They would not go with the 60 though. I would move the 60 to the next fenced area, again, like a 1 to 2 day plot. And then those goats that are still at home would go in where the 60 goats just left from. So those would be my intact boys, and a couple neutered boys that don't get along in the other group. So they would not go together. I don't like winter oops babies. So very particular with when I put intact boys with females. They would go in behind them, but they don't join them.
So Michelle, what do they eat in the winter? And does
Hay.
that mess up their desire or for food or?
It is like the absolute worst temper tantrum when the brush season ends, especially with the babies who like grew up only eating that all season long, basically bottles or nursing and brush. And then come fall, early winter, they go to hay. They scream. I mean, like days if it's the babies. The bigs will scream for like a day, day and a half, like just throwing a temper tantrum. Um, I do transition them to hay. So the rumen is one of the compartments of the stomach is really, really sensitive to abrupt feed changes. So I do transition them to hay. So the last couple jobs, I'll actually start bringing hay. And after they eat the bulk of what they need for that day, I'll start putting hay in there and they'll eat it. They're not happy about it, especially since they know what's coming. But yeah, for about 2 weeks, we'll transition them to hay. And then when they come back, the end of the season, then they eat just hay. Yeah. Everything, all the green stuff goes away here in Michigan. So, yep.
They
Lots
must
and
be
lots and lots and lots
ecstatic.
and lots of hay. They go through
They
a
must be
lot.
They must be ecstatic on their first bush day in the spring, right?
They are. They are.
Do they
Actually,
frolic? Do they
it's
frolic?
it's usually so I'm actually at one of my neighbors' houses right now. But all my neighbors love the goats. And so we have a lot of neighboring properties that one of them, the one that I mentioned, like back 40 that hadn't been touched in decades, is actually like kind of straight out for me right there. So we actually start again, just like the fall time, transitioning them to lush greens early in the season. So we'll have them eat most of their daily fill with nice big bellies till they're laying down chewing their cud. And then when greens start coming, we'll take them out in the evening time. And I know it just seems absolutely chaotic, and it's really not as chaotic as it sounds. But I actually just like open the gates. They follow me. So we actually just like go on our neighbors' properties. So we'll walk through the back 40. We'll walk through my neighbor Mary's fields. Yeah, they get most of their fill in hay, and then we slowly transition them with like an hour walk at night, and then 2 hours, and then the afternoon, and then we'll put up a fence and like we'll put them back and forth for a few days. So they're half the day on hay, half the day out. And then they're pretty good. So about 2 weeks in the fall and 2 weeks in the spring, but they scream like happy scream. They scream when that gate opens, and I'm like, let's go. And they know exactly where we're going and what we're doing.
You've got a great demonstration project here,
Thank you.
program here. What are the possibilities of replicating or expanding it? There's plenty of invasives, but as you say, goats done badly is not the same as goats done well. And this very
Yes.
intensive grazing seems to be important.
Yes.
How is the knowledge base expanding, or is there possibilities to expand the knowledge base in the?
Yeah, I'm always up for
operatives?
learning other things, but I'm kind of a nerd, so I would love to delve deeper and put more details in, more numbers, more stats, things like that. It's
Yeah, well, I was
definitely
thinking like
feasible.
MSU and land grant universities and so on. Presumably, there's a role they play in nurturing organizations like your own, or operations like your own.
That'd be great. Yeah, I know MSU has a pretty big horticulture base, so
Mhm.
yeah, if we could get some knowledge going to there, that would be
Mhm.
excellent. My my big thing with not shouting at the mountaintops is my key limiting factor is time and help.
Mhm.
So like when Ryan from Kent Conservation District came out to look at the properties, they're like, I've never seen you like in the news, or there's not a newspaper article or anything like that. And no, because I wouldn't be able to keep up. So that's the big thing. If I had more help, I would be able to do more jobs, but help is always the limiting factor there.
Okay.
Especially the fact that you are hand doing all that cutting, all that work you did yesterday, you did yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that in the sense of being able to have other people helping you and expanding that, I mean, you do such an excellent job in managing the animals and being able to, I mean, that just adds to your management if you increase the number of people that are working for you, of course.
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
I was really fortunate to get Amelia this summer. Really, really great young lady. Really hard worker, really responsible. Like I could trust her to do things safely. But it's really hard. Like Ryan says, for Kent Conservation District strike team, their biggest limiting factor is help as well. They just cannot find people who want to find it enjoyable to go out and trek through briars and cut down autumn olive and get stabbed through your gloves and come get poison ivy every week and do that in 90-degree weather. So it seems to be the limiting factor for a lot of businesses, facilities, groups that do that sort of work.
One other thing I would like you to explain is that you use Spanish goats versus other kinds of goats that may be used with other companies, whoever. You gave some interesting information. We only have a few minutes left, but I think everybody would like to know the type of goat you use and why.
So they are Spanish goats in particular. They are a heritage breed. They're actually the Livestock Conservancy, which I'm also a member of. There are not many of them. The premise of them is that the Spanish brought them over to the States and left them where they made landfall in anticipation of coming back to that same location and having a food supply. So what survived were generations, hundreds of years of goats that had adapted to each of those locations. So there were groups that were dropped off in South Carolina, Texas, Florida, all over the southern coast. So there are different lines, is what they're called, of Spanish goats. Some are better suited for wet environments, some are better suited for mountainous environments, arid versus muggy. But the premise of them is they're all feral, basically. They're all very, very feral. That's why I bottle raise mine. So my brood stock that we have a love-hate relationship. I mainly have them for their genetics. It is definitely not for their temperament. I've had my mature feral females and males kill other of my goats, if given the opportunity. They are very, very, very feral. So any that I want to retain for broodstock, I bottle raise. So they're very attached to me, very friendly, very calm. Going with that though, they're very parasite resistant because you don't deworm white-tailed deer or rabbits. I mean, if they succumb to a heavy parasite infestation, they pass away. So those genetics are not brought about. If they have birthing difficulties, they didn't survive. So the big broodstock farms, particularly down in Texas, Arkansas, things like that, any dystocia issues, birthing issues, they cull them. They're sent to market. Any pneumonia, they're sent to market. Foot rot, they're sent to market. So what you're left with is a very hands-off, very healthy, hardy goat. And so that's why I got them. So I've gone to other states to get new genetics because I like the breed so much. And I'm actually the only one in Michigan that has them now through the Spanish Goat Association. So Heidi Stuckey down like the Battle Creek area. She had them like 10 years ago, but it's been a long time she's had them. And then I actually bought the rest of the goats from Mr. Roth. I think 3 years ago, I got the rest of his goats. He's out of it now too. So I'm like the only one in Michigan that has Spanish goats now, but very, very different from like your boar goat or your Nigerian dwarf or things like that.
Yeah, that was what I wanted you to explain, because I knew
Yep.
there was a difference in what you were saying about their whole behavior. And there was one other thing, and we've got 2-3 minutes left, and anybody else has any questions, was what I love the story about. I mean, she has named all these goats, okay? So I don't remember the name of the large goat that was doing the brute goat that was doing all the work. And you said that he was so smart that he would push the branches down. Explain that part. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, Theo, he's always the fan favorite. He's like a big cuddly teddy bear. He's like 225, 230 pounds. But a total pushover. He can get 8, 9 feet up in brush in trees. He pulls vines down, he walks saplings down. The nice thing about him, he's hands down my best brush goat. Is he shares. He's a really good sharer. So he went to kindergarten really well. He walks things down, pulls things down, and he stands and holds it and lets others eat. So some of my fill in the blank ones, feral ones, they walk things down, they pull things down, and then they see others running because they see the food that's coming down at their level and they let it go. So to Bella, she'll walk a sapling down, but it has a bunch of bittersweet on it. She sees others coming. She's like, oh, no, no. She just like looks away and pretends that nothing happened. So then when they leave, then she'll go and eat it again. Theo shares. So everyone gets to join in when Theo's there. And he's just so big. You see him up in the tree, reaching 8, 9 feet up, pawing things down, pulling things down with his mouth. Yeah, he's just the best.
Thank you for telling that story, because I just loved it. Just to hear the distinction. I mean, any of us who have had animals know that there's such a distinct, always personality differences between various animals, but
Very much.
But hearing it with the goats, particularly in your work, yes. Anything else? Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Just that this was really fascinating. Really enjoyed it.
Good.
Yeah,
I'm
say,
glad. Thank you.
Michelle, I was curious, how many other goat operations like yours are there in the country? Is this a growing movement?
They're big out west, so fire control is a huge reason that they're using them, particularly out west. So they'll put them in huge open ranges to try to prevent, if they do have a fire outbreak, that from spreading to more civilized areas. So huge out in the west areas. California is a big one. Not so big out here. There's a couple other local ones. They have one has 4 goats. One has 10 or 12 or something. But again, they're not good brush goats. They fence large areas. They're not efficient. Very different.
Well,
Gotcha.
I was thankful to find Michelle in many ways. I mean, it's been great just learning and getting to know you, and for the big project. I mean, how many neighbors are you working? I mean, you're working 3 lands out in the neighborhood near St. Andrews?
5, 6.
Six
Yep.
people And now these people know each other. There's a whole
Mhm.
community of discussion and conversation. I've gotten to know some of them. It's just an amazing in just a very few weeks and how excited they are
Mhm.
about this project and seeing what's happening. So I got to get over there tomorrow and see.
There's group texts going on, there's group emails going on. They're talking about, I recommend, there's a lot of brown, there's a lot of twigs, branches, stems, things like that. So I recommend, they have a lot, get a wood chipper and then mulch, cover the soil after. So they're actually, 3 of them in this big block that the goats are on right now are actually going to go in together and rent a wood chipper for a week and like wood chip everything in all their woods. They're all going to help each other and get everything all cleaned up. So yeah, the community engagement is phenomenal.
And that's what for you guys, they all live in different areas. That's what I think that I'd highly recommend in the sense of if you know an area that particularly is overgrown with these invasives that she's
Mhm.
named, that what happens in the neighborhood, I mean, this has just all happened just a few weeks. And
Yes.
it's just amazing how people have come together and are really focused on this
Mhm.
problem. And they want to save their trees. I mean, and that's the primary thing. And besides just everything else and balance out the biodiversity again.
Right.
Lauren was talking, we had a long talk today after you left and about all these plans, and she wanted to know what the church was doing. I thought, you're so far ahead of us. So I said, we're not having that conversation yet. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's been great. So yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I really learned so much about it
Thank
and
you, Michelle.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
That's a
welcome.
really
Thank
great
you
Thank
guys for
you.
having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so we will see everyone. Hopefully, remember next month. Michelle, you're always invited. Next month, we're meeting we always meet the third Thursday evening. We're going to be at Vivant Brewery,
Nice.
learning about what Vivant is doing on sustainability. They've been one of the leaders in the community.
Mhm.
And so we have variety of things we do each month. So we appreciate the time that
Great.
you've given. So,
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for listening.
okay.
Thank you.